The conference hall was silent. Not the good kind of silence that came from peace. This was the silence of fear. Ambassador Jathara stood in the center of the chamber, her 4 arms trembling. Around her, representatives from 847 different species waited for her to speak. She had served the Galactic Council for 300 years. In all that time, she had never seen such terror in the eyes of so many leaders. These were civilizations that had existed for millions of years. They had survived wars, plagues, and natural disasters. But nothing had prepared them for the Devourers. The first attack came 6 months ago. A mining colony on the edge of the Andromeda sector simply vanished. When scout ships arrived, they found nothing. No buildings, no bodies, not even rocks or dirt. Just empty space where a planet used to be. The entire world had been consumed. High Commander Vraxis stepped forward. His scales were usually bright green, but now they looked dull and gray. He activated the hologram display in the center of the room. Images of destruction filled the air above them. "We have lost 42 worlds," Vraxis said. His voice was rough with exhaustion. "That is 42 planets completely destroyed. Gone. We estimate 12 billion lives lost." A gasp went through the chamber. 12 billion. The number was too large to understand. Jathara felt her chest tighten. "What are these Devourers?" someone asked from the back of the room. Vraxis touched the controls. The hologram changed to show a creature. It was massive and dark, with thousands of writhing tentacles. But it was not just one creature. The image zoomed out to show millions of them, all connected by glowing threads of energy. "They are a hive mind," Vraxis explained. "They think as one, they move as one, and they have only one purpose: to consume. They eat everything. Rock, metal, organic matter, even the atmosphere. They leave nothing behind." "Can we fight them?" Another voice called out. Vraxis looked down. That was answer enough. But he spoke anyway. "We sent our combined fleet, 5,000 warships from 30 different species, the best weapons in the galaxy. We engaged them near the Theta Nebula." He paused. Jathara could see pain in his eyes. "Only 3 ships came back," Vraxis continued. 3 ships out of 5,000. The Devourers destroyed the rest in less than 4 hours. Our weapons barely scratched them. And every ship they destroyed, they consumed. They are growing stronger with every battle." The room erupted in panicked voices. Some species began shouting in their native languages. Others simply stared in shock. The Galactic Council had maintained peace for 50,000 years. They had treaties and laws and diplomatic solutions for everything. But this enemy did not care about peace. This enemy could not be reasoned with. Jathara raised one of her arms. Slowly the chamber grew quiet again. "There must be something we can do," she said. "Some weapon we have not tried. Some ally we have not called." Vraxis shook his head. "We have tried everything. We have used every weapon known to galactic civilization. We have called upon every military alliance. There is no one left to ask for help." "What about the quarantine zones?" someone suggested. "There are primitive civilizations in some of those sectors. Perhaps one of them could help." Several council members laughed bitterly at that suggestion. Primitive civilizations? What could they possibly do against a threat that had defeated the greatest military forces in the galaxy? But Jathara did not laugh. She was thinking. The Milky Way galaxy had been marked as a quarantine zone 500,000 years ago. The council had decided the species there were too young, too violent, too dangerous to contact. They were to be left alone until they matured. But desperate times called for desperate measures. "The Milky Way," she said suddenly. "There is a species there. They call themselves humans. Our deep space probes have detected quantum signatures from their world. They are using advanced technology. They are spacefaring." Vraxis turned to look at her. "The humans? They are listed as primitive, aggressive, dangerous. The council voted to avoid contact with them." "Yes," Jathara said. "But that vote was made a very long time ago. They may have changed. They may have grown. And right now, they are the only ones we have not asked." The chamber fell silent again. Every eye turned to look at Jathara. What she was suggesting was against all council protocol. The quarantine zones existed for good reasons. But what choice did they have? If we do nothing, Jathara continued, we will all die. The Devourers are moving toward the core galaxies. In 3 months they will reach the heart of council space. We need help. Any help. Even from humans. After a long pause, Vraxis nodded slowly. Very well. We will send a message. But I do not think it will help. If we cannot stop the Devourers, with all our technology and millions of years of knowledge, what can a primitive species possibly do? Jathara did not answer. She did not know, but she had to try. 2 hours later, she stood in the communications room. The technician had prepared the message. It would be broadcast on all frequencies toward the Milky Way galaxy, toward Earth. The message was simple. We are the Galactic Council. We represent 847 civilized species. We are under attack by an enemy we cannot defeat. Our worlds are being destroyed. Our people are dying. If anyone can hear this message, we need help. Please. We are desperate. Anyone who can hear this, please help us. The technician looked at Jathara. She nodded. The message was sent. Now all they could do was wait. And hope. Hope that someone in that distant galaxy would hear their cry for help. Hope that they would care. Hope that they would come. But hope was all they had left. Dr. Sarah Chen was drinking her 3rd cup of coffee when the alert came through. It was 2 a.m. at the SETI Quantum Array facility in New Mexico. She had been on night shift for the past week, watching endless streams of data from deep space. Most nights nothing happened. Tonight was different. The computer screen flashed red. Then it began to beep. Not the usual random noise they sometimes picked up. This was a signal. A clear, structured, intelligent signal. Sarah sat up straight, her tiredness forgotten. Her hands shook as she began recording the data. The signal was coming from far away, very far away, beyond anything humanity had ever detected before. She ran it through the translation program. The computer worked for several minutes, analyzing patterns, comparing frequencies, building a language map. Then text began appearing on her screen. Sarah read the words. Then she read them again. Her heart was pounding. We are the Galactic Council. We represent 847 civilized species. We are under attack by an enemy we cannot defeat. Our worlds are being destroyed. Our people are dying. If anyone can hear this message, we need help. She grabbed her phone and called the director. He answered after 5 rings, his voice heavy with sleep. This better be important, Chen. We got a message, Sarah said. Her voice was barely a whisper. From aliens. They are asking for help. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, I will be there in 20 minutes. Within 6 hours, the facility was full of people. Scientists, military officers, government officials. Everyone wanted to see the message. Everyone wanted to know if it was real. Sarah played the recording over and over. She showed them the translation. She explained the quantum frequency. There was no doubt. This was not a hoax. This was not a test. This was real. Aliens existed, and they were in trouble. The news spread across Earth like wildfire. Within 24 hours, every person on the planet knew. Aliens were real. They had been watching humanity, and now they needed help. President Elena Vasquez called an emergency meeting of the United Defense Coalition. Leaders from every nation gathered in Geneva. The room was filled with nervous energy. We need to decide how to respond, President Vasquez said. She looked tired but determined. We have never faced a decision like this before. Some argued they should ignore the message. It could be a trap. Maybe the aliens wanted to lure humanity into deep space and attack them. Others said humanity was not ready. They had only been spacefaring for 180 years. What could they do against an enemy that had defeated 847 alien species? But Admiral Marcus Wolf disagreed. He was an old soldier with gray hair and steady eyes. He had commanded the human defense fleet for 20 years. We have to help them, he said simply. Why? Someone asked. They are not our problem. Let them fight their own war. Wolf stood up. Because if we do not help them, we will be next. The message said these devourers are destroying entire worlds. If they finish with the Galactic Council, do you think they will stop? No, they will keep coming. And eventually they will reach Earth. The room fell silent. Everyone knew he was right. There is another reason, Wolf continued. For centuries we have wondered if we were alone in the universe. Now we know we are not. And the first thing we hear is a cry for help. What kind of species would we be if we turned our backs? What does that say about humanity? President Vasquez nodded slowly. You are right, Admiral. We will respond. But we must be careful. We do not know what we are walking into. Sarah was called in to help compose the response. She worked with a team of linguists and scientists. They debated every word. The message had to be clear. It had to be strong. But it also had to be careful. They could not reveal too much about human capabilities. After 12 hours of work, they had their message. It was short, simple, message received. Humanity is coming. Hold the line. They transmitted it toward the coordinates included in the alien message. Then they waited. 2 days later, they received a response. It was from Ambassador Jethara. Her message was full of gratitude and relief. She provided more details about the Devourers. She sent tactical data. She gave them coordinates for a meeting point called the Bastion System. She also expressed surprise. She had not expected such a quick response. She had not expected humanity to agree to help at all. The Council records showed humans as primitive and dangerous. Sarah smiled when she read that part. Primitive. That word would come back to haunt them. Because what the Galactic Council did not know was that humanity had been preparing for war among the stars for nearly 2 centuries. When they first achieved faster-than-light travel, they encountered automated warning buoys at the edge of their solar system. The buoys made it clear, stay in your sector, do not explore, do not expand. Most species would have obeyed. But humans were not like most species. The warning made them suspicious, made them cautious, made them prepare, so humanity built warships, not exploration vessels, not colony ships, warships. They developed weapons that even they found frightening. They created military doctrines based on one simple principle. If we ever meet hostile aliens, we must be able to win. Now that preparation would be tested, Admiral Wolf stood on the bridge of the UDS Vengeance, the flagship of the human expeditionary force. Around him, 500 warships prepared for departure. They were sleek and dark, built for speed and destruction. Each one carried enough firepower to level a continent. Captain Yuki Tanaka approached him. She was young but brilliant, in charge of the Experimental Weapons Division. All ships are ready, Admiral. We can leave when you give the order. Wolf looked at the star map. The Bastion system was far away, but their FTL drives were fast, much faster than anything the Galactic Council used. They would arrive in 3 weeks. He thought about the message, about desperate aliens begging for help, about an enemy that consumed entire worlds, about humanity taking its first real step onto the galactic stage. Give the order, he said. We are going to war. The fleet jumped into FTL space, 500 human warships disappearing in flashes of blue light. They were going to answer the call. They were going to help. But the Galactic Council had no idea what was really coming. Humanity was not coming to save them. Humanity was coming to teach the galaxy a very important lesson. When humans went to war, they did not fight to win. They fought to make absolutely certain the enemy could never threaten anyone ever again. Ambassador Jethara stood at the observation deck of the Bastion station. Through the massive windows she could see the remains of the Council fleet. 12,000 ships, that was all that remained from an alliance that once commanded millions of vessels. The ships looked tired. Many had scorch marks from battles with the Devourers. Some were held together with emergency repairs. Every single one had lost crew members. The mood throughout the fleet was dark. High Commander Vraxis joined her at the window. His scales had not regained their color. He looked like he had aged 100 years in the past few months. The humans will arrive today, he said quietly. Jethara nodded. She felt both hope and worry. Hope that the humans could help. Worry that she had made a terrible mistake. How many ships are they bringing? Vraxis asked. They said 500. Vraxis let out a bitter laugh. 500 ships, against an enemy that destroyed 5,000 of ours. What can 500 possibly do? Jethara did not answer. She had been wondering the same thing. An alarm sounded. A technician called out from his station. Jump signatures detected. Multiple contacts emerging from FTL. Everyone rushed to the windows. Space began to shimmer. Then the human fleet arrived. Jethara gasped. She had never seen ships like these before. Council ships were elegant. They were built for exploration and diplomacy, only armed when necessary. Even their warships had curved lines and bright colors. Human ships were different. They were angular and dark. They looked like weapons themselves. There was no decoration, no unnecessary features. Every line, every surface seemed designed for one purpose: war. 500 of them appeared in perfect formation. They moved with precision that suggested years of military training. Their hulls were black and gray, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. "This is impossible," a technician whispered. "Their FTL signatures are wrong. No ship should be able to travel that fast." Vraxis stared at the human fleet. For the first time in months, Jethara saw something besides despair in his eyes. She saw surprise, maybe even fear. "What are they?" he asked quietly. A communication request came through. It was from the lead human ship, the UDS Vengeance. Jethara accepted the call. A human face appeared on the screen. It was an older male with gray hair and hard eyes. He wore a military uniform. "I am Admiral Marcus Wolf of the Human Defense Fleet. We received your distress call. We are here to help." Jethara bowed. "Thank you, Admiral. I am Ambassador Jethara of the Galactic Council. We are grateful you came. But I must ask, is this all? 500 ships?" The human's expression did not change. "This is more than enough, Ambassador. We are not here to match your enemy in numbers. We are here to eliminate them." "Eliminate them?" Vraxis stepped forward. "We have been fighting these devourers for months. They destroyed 5,000 of our best warships. They consume everything in their path. What makes you think 500 ships can stop them?" Admiral Wolf looked at Vraxis. "Because we do not fight the way you do, Commander. Humans have been at war with each other for our entire history. We learned very important lessons. We learned that there is only one way to truly win a war." "And what is that?" Vraxis asked. "Total destruction of the enemy's ability to ever fight again." The words hung in the air. Jethara felt a chill run down her spine. There was something in the Admiral's voice. Something cold. "Something absolute. We need to discuss strategy," Vraxis said. "Our scouts report that a large devourer fleet is heading this way. They will arrive in approximately 6 hours. We should coordinate our forces." "Understood," Wolf replied. "We will review your tactical data. In the meantime, my fleet will take up defensive positions. When the devourers arrive, please allow us to observe their attack patterns before engaging." "Observe?" Vraxis looked shocked. "You want to just watch? We need to understand how they fight, how they move, how they coordinate. Humans believe in knowing the enemy before striking." "Do not worry, Commander. We will not let them destroy your ships." The communication ended. Jethara and Vraxis looked at each other. "I do not like this," Vraxis said. "They are too confident, too calm. What if they cannot deliver on their promises?" "Then we all die," Jethara replied simply. "But did you see their ships? Did you hear how he talked? These humans are different from us. They do not think like us. That is what worries me." 6 hours passed. The Devourer fleet emerged from the void. Sensors counted 100,000 bioships. They looked like massive insects crossed with deep-sea creatures. Each one was covered in writhing tentacles and glowing with sickly green light. The Council fleet moved into battle formation. 12,000 ships against 100,000. The math was not in their favor. The human fleet did not move. They stayed back, watching, scanning, learning. The Devourers attacked. The Council ships fired first. Energy beams and missiles streaked through space. Some hit their targets, burning holes in Devourer bioships. But the damage healed almost instantly. The ships regrew their wounds. The Devourers fired back. Their weapons were biological in nature, launching acid clouds and parasitic creatures. Council ships began to fall. Jethara watched in horror as 3 cruisers were consumed in minutes. "Why are the humans not helping?" Vraxis shouted. "We are dying out there." Then Admiral Wolf's voice came over the communication channel. "All Council ships fall back to minimum safe distance. Humans are now engaging." The human fleet moved forward, not slowly, not cautiously. They accelerated at speeds that should have torn the ships apart. They moved through space like predators closing in on prey. Jethara leaned forward, gripping the railing. The Devourers turned to face this new threat. They had numbers on their side. They had won every battle for months. They were confident. That confidence was about to be shattered. Admiral Wolf gave one simple order: show them what happens when you threaten our neighbors. The human ships opened fire in the galaxy, learned what true war looked like. The first volley from the human fleet was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Streaks of light crossed the void at incredible speed. These were not energy beams. These were physical projectiles moving at 99% the speed of light. Kinetic kill vehicles, simple chunks of dense metal accelerated to impossible velocities. When they hit the Devourer bioships, the results were catastrophic. The impact released more energy than a nuclear explosion. Entire sections of the Devourer fleet simply ceased to exist. Vaporized in an instant, Jathara could not speak. She could only stare. In one strike, the humans had destroyed more Devourers than the Council had in weeks of fighting. But the humans were not finished. The second wave of weapons was different. These were missiles, but not like any the Council used. As they approached the Devourer fleet, they exploded into clouds of smaller projectiles. Thousands of them. They spread out like a metal rain. Each projectile found a target. They punched through bioship hulls and detonated inside. The Devourers tried to regenerate, but something was wrong. Their healing abilities were not working. "What are those weapons?" Vraxis demanded. A human officer responded over the communication channel. "Quantum disruption bombs. They prevent molecular reconstruction at the subatomic level. The Devourers cannot heal wounds caused by these weapons." The Devourer fleet began to panic. They had never faced an enemy that could permanently damage them. They tried to retreat, but the human ships were faster. Much faster. Human fighters swarmed through the Devourer ranks. They were small and quick, dodging the biological weapons with ease. They targeted weak points, destroying ship after ship with surgical precision. The larger human warships moved into optimal firing positions. They unleashed a new weapon, torpedoes that glowed with blue light. When they struck Devourer ships, the effect was terrifying. The torpedoes did not just destroy their targets. They sent energy pulses through the hive mind connections. One torpedo would hit one ship, and 10 other ships would convulse and die. The Devourer's greatest strength had become a weakness. Cascade torpedoes, Captain Tanaka explained. They exploit the neural links in hive mind species. 1 kill becomes 10 kills. Very efficient. Very efficient. Jathara felt sick. These humans spoke about destruction so casually, like they were discussing the weather. 2 hours into the battle, the Devourer fleet was in chaos. They had lost over 60,000 ships. The human fleet had not lost a single vessel. Vraxis watched the battle displays in stunned silence. This should not be possible. How are they doing this? Jathara had no answer. She was beginning to understand why the Council had quarantined humanity. These were not just warriors. These were beings who had turned warfare into a science, an art form. They had spent thousands of years fighting each other and learning from every battle. The Devourers tried one last desperate attack. They concentrated their remaining forces and charged directly at the human flagship. It was a suicide run, meant to overwhelm through sheer numbers. Admiral Wolf's voice remained calm. "Activate Sunderer Protocol, what is that?" Jathara asked nervously. "You will see," the Admiral replied. One of the human ships broke formation. It was smaller than the others, with a strange design. It moved toward the nearby star. Then it fired a single device into the star's corona. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the star flickered. A massive solar flare erupted from its surface. But this was not a natural flare. It was directed, controlled. A beam of stellar fire that cut across space like a sword. The flare struck the charging Devourer fleet. Thousands of bioships were incinerated in seconds. The heat was so intense that even ships at the edge of the blast were damaged beyond repair. "They weaponized a star," Vraxis whispered. His voice was filled with equal parts awe and horror. After 4 hours, the battle was over. The Devourer fleet was destroyed. Every single ship. The human fleet had achieved total victory without losing a single vessel. The Council fleet remained in shocked silence. They had just witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. A perfect military victory. Admiral Wolf opened a channel to the station. "Battle concluded. Enemy forces eliminated. What are your orders, Ambassador?" Jathara struggled to find words. "You saved us. Thank you. We are eternally grateful." The Admiral's expression did not change. "We have not saved you yet. This was one fleet. Intelligence analysis of the debris shows these Devourers came from a home cluster. We tracked their quantum signature. We know where they are from." A cold feeling settled in Jathara's stomach. "What are you saying?" I am saying we need to finish this. The Devourer species has 47 homeworlds in a cluster 300 light-years from here. As long as those worlds exist, they will continue to send fleets. Continue to consume, continue to kill. Vraxis stepped forward. Are you suggesting we attack their homeworlds? That would be a war of aggression. The Council does not approve of such actions. Admiral Wolf's eyes grew hard. Commander, your species asked for our help. We came, we fought. We won. But if you want this threat truly eliminated, we must ensure it can never return. That means destroying the source, but those are entire worlds, Jathara said. Billions of Devourers live there. Most are not warriors. They are civilians. The Devourers do not have civilians, the Admiral replied coldly. They are a hive mind. Every single one is part of the collective consciousness. Every single one shares responsibility for the attacks. Every single one will grow into a new fleet eventually. Jathara felt her hands trembling. What you are describing is genocide. Wolf nodded. Yes, it is, and I understand your moral concerns. But I need you to understand something about humanity. We have fought wars of extinction before, on our own world. We know the price. We know the cost. And we know that sometimes the only way to protect innocent life is to eliminate the threat completely. He paused, letting his words sink in. You called us for help, we answered. We came here prepared to do what you cannot, what you will not. We came prepared to make the hard choice, the terrible choice, so that you would not have to. The communication channel went silent. Jathara looked at Vraxis. She saw the same conflict in his eyes that she felt in her own heart. The humans had saved them. But at what cost? And what were they about to unleash? Admiral Wolf spoke again, his voice softer now. I will give you 1 hour to discuss this with your council. But understand this, whether you approve or not, humanity will finish what we started. We did not travel across the galaxy to half-solve a problem. We will eliminate the Devourer threat completely. The only question is whether the Council stands with us or against us. The screen went dark. Jathara sat down heavily. She had thought humanity would be saviors, rescuers, heroes. She had not expected them to be executioners. The emergency council session lasted 3 hours. Representatives from 847 species argued over what humanity proposed. Some agreed that the Devourers must be destroyed completely. Others insisted that genocide could never be justified, no matter the circumstances. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the human observation room, listening to the translation. She had joined the fleet as a diplomatic advisor. Now she wondered if that had been a mistake. Admiral Wolf stood beside her, his face unreadable. We should not do this, Sarah said quietly. There has to be another way. What other way? Wolf asked. Containment? Negotiation? The Devourers have consumed 42 worlds. They do not talk. They do not surrender. They only consume. What would you have us do? I do not know. But this feels wrong. We came here to help people, not to commit mass murder. Wolf turned to look at her. His eyes were tired but determined. Dr. Chen, I have been a soldier for 40 years. I have seen war. Real war. I know what it does to people. I know the cost. But I also know what happens when you show mercy to an enemy that does not understand mercy. He gestured toward the star map showing Devourer territory. If we leave them alive, they will rebuild. They will send more fleets. More worlds will die. Maybe not today. Maybe not next year, but eventually. And when they do, it will be our fault. Because we had the chance to stop them and chose not to. Sarah had no answer to that. She knew he was right in a terrible, logical way. But it still felt wrong. The council vote came in. By a narrow margin, they authorized humanity to proceed. Many species voted against it. Others abstained. But enough agreed that the threat had to be eliminated. Jathara delivered the decision personally. She looked like she had aged decades. May the ancestors forgive us for what we are about to allow. Wolf nodded. I understand the weight of this decision, Ambassador. Know that humanity takes no pleasure in what we are about to do. But it must be done. The human fleet departed for Devourer space. The Council fleet did not follow. They chose to remain at the Bastion system. They wanted no part in what came next. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Vengeance as they approached the Devourer home cluster. Through the windows, she could see 47 planets orbiting multiple stars. Sensors showed massive populations, billions of Devourers. These worlds had no defensive fleets. All their military forces had been sent to attack Council space. The planets were vulnerable. Admiral Wolf stood at the command console. He looked at the planets for a long moment. Then he gave the order, "Execute Obliteration Protocol." Sarah closed her eyes. She could not watch. The human ships moved into position around the cluster. They deployed devices into the corona of each star, special weapons designed for one purpose: stellar manipulation. Captain Tanaka managed the operation with clinical precision. Devices synchronized. Countdown initiated. All systems nominal. Wolf stood silently, waiting. The countdown reached 0. The stars exploded, not naturally. These were forced detonations. The devices had destabilized the stellar cores, triggering premature supernovas. Multiple stars detonating at once. The blast waves expanded outward at the speed of light. They struck the Devourer planets with unimaginable force. Entire worlds were vaporized in seconds. Atmospheres stripped away. Oceans boiled. Continents melted. 47 planets. Billions of lives. Gone. The human fleet watched from a safe distance. No one spoke. Even the experienced officers looked shaken. They had known this would happen, but seeing it was different. Sarah opened her eyes. The view screen showed expanding clouds of stellar debris where planets had once orbited. She felt tears on her face. "What have we done?" she whispered. Wolf did not answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "We did what was necessary. We eliminated a threat that would have destroyed countless other worlds. We saved billions of lives by taking billions of lives. Does that make it right?" "No," Wolf replied. "It just makes it necessary. There is a difference." News of what happened spread through the galaxy within days. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions. Species that had voted for the action now questioned their choice. Species that had voted against it condemned humanity as monsters. The galaxy was divided. Some praised humanity as saviors who did what no one else could. Others feared humanity as potential conquerors who had shown they were willing to commit genocide. Jathara found herself in an impossible position. She had called humanity for help. She had voted to allow them to proceed. Now she had to live with the consequences. She met with Admiral Wolf one last time before the human fleet returned to Earth. "Do you regret what you did?" she asked. Wolf thought carefully before answering. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that we live in a universe where such actions are required. But I do not regret protecting innocent lives from a threat that would have killed them all. The galaxy is afraid of us now." "Yes," Wolf agreed. "And perhaps that is not entirely bad. Sometimes fear prevents conflict. Sometimes the threat of overwhelming force keeps the peace better than treaties. Is that how humanity wants to be known? As the species everyone fears?" "No," Wolf said firmly. "We want to be known as the species that answered when you called for help. As the species that did what needed to be done, no matter how hard. As the species that values life enough to protect it at any cost." He paused. "But we also understand that sometimes protection requires terrible choices, and we are willing to make those choices so that others do not have to." Jathara nodded slowly. She still did not know if calling humanity had been right, but she knew that without them, the Council would have fallen. The Devourers would have consumed everything. Back on Earth, Sarah Chen resigned from the military. She could not continue serving after what she had witnessed. Instead, she founded a new organization, the Galactic Peace Corps, an initiative designed to show the galaxy the other side of humanity. The side that built and created instead of destroyed. Admiral Wolf retired. He had done his duty. He had protected humanity and its new allies. But the weight of those 47 worlds haunted him. He spent his remaining years working with veterans, helping others cope with the terrible things war required. The galaxy would never forget what happened. The obliteration of the devourer species became a defining moment in galactic history. The moment when humanity showed it was both the greatest hope and the deepest fear of the civilized galaxy. They had answered the cry for help. They had delivered obliteration, and now they would have to live with what that meant. 6 months after the obliteration, the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. The Galactic Council convened in their grand chamber for the first time since the war ended. Every species sent representatives. Everyone wanted to discuss humanity. The chamber was divided into 3 main groups. The grateful sat on the right side. These were species whose worlds had been directly threatened by the devourers. They believed humanity had saved them. They wanted humans as permanent allies and members of the Council. Species like the Vrithani, who had lost 3 colony worlds, spoke passionately about how humanity had succeeded where everyone else failed. The fearful occupied the left side. These species had not been in immediate danger from the devourers. They saw only that humanity had destroyed 47 worlds and billions of lives. They argued for a new quarantine. They wanted humanity isolated, monitored, prevented from using such weapons ever again. The Zephyri delegation called humanity a greater threat than the devourers had ever been. The pragmatic held the center. These species were torn. They acknowledged that humanity had saved the galaxy, but they were deeply uncomfortable with the methods used. They proposed restrictions, oversight, treaties that would limit human military capabilities while still allowing cooperation. Ambassador Jethara listened to days of debate. She had not slept well since the obliteration. Every night she saw those 47 worlds burning in her dreams. Finally, it was time for humanity to respond. President Elena Vasquez herself had come to address the council. She stood at the central podium, looking at the gathered species. The chamber fell silent. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began. Her voice was clear and strong. "I come before you today to address the concerns that have been raised about my species. I come to offer humanity's perspective, and I come to give you a choice." She paused, letting her words settle. 6 months ago, you sent a desperate message into the void. You were dying. Your fleets were destroyed. Your worlds were being consumed. You asked for help from anyone who could hear you. We heard, we came. We fought, we won. Some of you are grateful. You understand that we saved billions of lives by ending the devourer threat permanently. You see us as allies, as friends. We value that friendship. Others among you are afraid. You look at our weapons and our methods and you see monsters. You fear that we might turn those weapons against you. That fear is not unreasonable. We are powerful. We are capable of terrible destruction. You have seen what we can do. President Vasquez looked directly at the fearful section. So let me be clear about something. Humanity did not come here to conquer. We did not come here to dominate. We came because it was the right thing to do. Because when someone cries for help, you answer. That is who we are. But I will not apologize for how we answered. We did what was necessary. We eliminated a threat that would have destroyed countless worlds. Yes, we used terrible weapons. Yes, we made a hard choice. But that choice saved your civilizations. She turned to address the entire assembly. There is something you should know about humanity. Something that might help you understand us better. The weapons we used against the devourers? Those were not our most powerful weapons. Not even close. A shocked murmur ran through the chamber. We have weapons that can tear holes in reality. Weapons that can turn planets inside out. Weapons so destructive that we sealed them away centuries ago and swore never to use them. We brought none of those to this war. We used only what was necessary, only what was proportionate to the threat. The silence in the chamber was absolute. I tell you this not to threaten you. I tell you this so you understand. Humanity has the power to destroy, but we choose not to. We choose to build, to create, to protect. We choose to use our power only when there is no other option. Now you must make a choice. You can accept humanity as a member of the galactic community. We will share our technology, our knowledge, our protection. We will help you build a stronger, safer galaxy, or you can reject us. You can isolate us. You can try to contain us. We will respect that choice. We will return to our sector of space. We will leave you alone. President Vasquez's voice grew softer but more intense. But understand this. If you reject us, you reject the protection we offer. If another threat emerges, if another species decides to consume or conquer, do not expect us to answer your call again. We will not come running to save those who chose to treat us as enemies. The choice is yours. We do not need the Council. We are strong enough to stand alone. But we believe the galaxy is better when species work together, when they protect each other, when they answer the call for help. She stepped back from the podium. I await your decision. The Council debated for 3 more days. The vote was held in a closed session. Species argued late into the night. Some relationships were damaged. New alliances were formed. In the end, the decision was made. By a vote of 489 to 358, humanity was granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. There were conditions. Humanity would be subject to restrictions on weapon deployment. They would allow limited inspections of their military capabilities. They would agree to use force only as a last resort, and only with Council approval. President Vasquez accepted the conditions. She knew they would not last forever. As humanity proved itself, the restrictions would ease. Trust would grow, or it would not. Time would tell. Jathara was appointed as the official human liaison. She would be the bridge between humanity and the Council. It was fitting, she thought. She had made the call that brought them here. Now she would help manage the consequences. She met with President Vasquez after the vote. I still do not know if I did the right thing, Jathara admitted. Calling humanity, allowing the obliteration, so many died. President Vasquez nodded. I understand. The burden of difficult decisions never fully goes away. But consider this. How many billions of lives were saved? How many worlds were protected? The devourers would have consumed everything. Now they are gone. The galaxy is safe. At what cost? At a terrible cost, Vasquez agreed. But that is the nature of survival. Sometimes there are no good choices. Only necessary ones. Meanwhile, Dr. Sarah Chen had established the Galactic Peace Corps. Human volunteers began arriving in Council space. Engineers helped rebuild destroyed worlds. Doctors provided medical care. Teachers shared knowledge. Artists created beauty. Slowly, the galaxy began to see another side of humanity. Not just the warriors and the weapons, but the dreamers and the builders. The species that could be gentle as well as fierce. It would take time. Trust was not built in days or months, but it was being built. Admiral Wolf, now retired, watched these developments from Earth. He had given testimony to multiple investigations about the obliteration. He had answered every question honestly. He stood by his decisions, but he was glad he did not have to make such choices anymore. One evening, he received a message from deep space. It was marked urgent. He opened it. The message was from an automated probe, one of thousands humanity had deployed throughout the galaxy after the war. This probe had detected something disturbing. In the void between galaxies, something was moving. Something massive. Something that had been dormant for millions of years. The probe's analysis suggested it had been awakened by the multiple supernova detonations. By the energy released during the obliteration, Wolf read the report carefully. Then he forwarded it to President Vasquez with a simple note. We may have a new problem. President Vasquez addressed humanity that evening. She spoke from the Capitol building in Geneva, her face projected on screens around the world. 6 months ago, we answered a call for help. We traveled across the galaxy to fight an enemy that threatened all civilized life. We won, but victory came at a price. We had to make choices that will haunt us forever. We had to do things that changed how the galaxy sees us. Some species now call us heroes. Others call us monsters. The truth is probably somewhere in between. We are neither purely good nor purely evil. We are human. We are capable of great compassion and terrible violence. We can build and we can destroy. Now we must prove to the galaxy that we are more than our weapons. We must show them our art, our culture, our kindness. We must demonstrate that the strength that saved them can also be used to build a better future. She paused. But make no mistake. If another threat emerges, if innocent lives are in danger, humanity will answer the call again. We will do what is necessary. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is our promise to the galaxy. And that is our burden to bear. The galaxy cried for help. We answered with obliteration. Now we must prove that we can answer with creation as well. We must show them the best of humanity before they forget everything but the worst. The broadcast ended. Across Earth, people sat in quiet reflection. They knew their species had changed. They had stepped onto the galactic stage. They could never go back. In Council Space, Jathara watched the same broadcast. She thought about the future, about the complex relationship between humanity and the rest of the galaxy, about hope and fear and the thin line between them. And in the void between galaxies, something ancient stirred, something drawn by the light of dying stars, something that would soon test whether the galaxy had made the right choice, whether they had been wise to accept humanity as an ally, or whether they had invited something far more dangerous than the Devourer.